child prodigy. From the time I began to speak, my parents knew that I would be a fast learner. I was only 4 when my father enrolled me in primary school, but because of the identification booklet my parents had given to me, I was admitted as a 6-year-old. I attended school with my stepbrother of 6.5 years. Even though I was much younger, I managed my studies and exams far better than he. My stepbrother was really struggling in school, so my father allowed him to quit after 5th grade. As for me, I delighted in the challenges and hard work required to complete homework. I enjoyed pursuing extra studies and would often sit studying late into the night aided by a lantern. I did not have a room or a study where I could tend to my work without disturbing others. I would work quietly in the same room where all of my siblings slept. Despite family and financial difficulties, I earned high grades because of my hard work. This convinced my parents that I was truly a miracle sent by God to console them. It also led them to believe that I would grow up to be a godly man. Many Muslims, including my parents, equate intelligence with godliness because they know that a clever student will potentially be able to memorize the Quran, the holy book of Islam, and this is fundamental for the growth of a religious person. On the other hand, my parents were also keenly aware of my passion for music. This was confusing to them because they also knew that Islamic doctrine considers music to be evil. Why would Allah create a godly man to love that which Allah condemned? It seemed to contradict itself. Because I was doing well in my studies, my parents encouraged me to read and recite the Quran in Arabic, a foreign language to Iranians. By the time I was 9 years old, I was able to read the Quran in Arabic and recite its chapters from memory. People would frequently call on me to recite the Quran at their various religious events and ceremonies. This lifted me up in the eyes of people. Other boys were taunted by their parents for their inability to recite the Quran as I could. Every family desired to have at least one child who could recite the Quran over their grave after their deaths in order to subdue the torments of hell or to receive rewards for their souls from Allah on the Day of Judgment. The lack of a reciter of the Quran at a funeral gathering would bring humiliation to the family members of a deceased person, as no one could be found to recite the Quran for his or her sake. My ability to recite the Quran gained honor for my family members in every respect. It seemed to be a misfortune that as I grew, my eyes became increasingly sensitive to sunlight. I was unable to open my eyes at all in the mornings until I had become properly adjusted to the daylight. My older brother would hold my hand while we made the hour-long walk to school, and it wasn't until we arrived at school that I was able to open my eyes fully. For the first 9 years of my schooling, my family was unable to find a physician who could manage treatment for the problem of my eyes. There were no specialists in our city, and travel costs were prohibitive. Fortunately, by the time I reached 10th grade, I was able to save enough money from jobs I worked in weekends and during holidays to pay for a doctor who could prescribe the proper optical prescription for my condition.